When a fan's heart is full of hate, he butthurts, cries, and a dark shadow falls over this troll. From the ashes of a once great fandom has risen a meme, an LOL that must be liked. We look to the airways for a vindicator, someone to strike fear in the dark basement of the parents who created him. The battle between fan and smart has begun. With a head on his shoulders stands the smart fan, a speaker of truths, with a voice of silence, and a radio show of justice. This is Ring Rust.
So, we got a couple of things going on this week. Of course, we got the pay-per review, as I like to call it. Like, it's a pre-per-view if I'm previewing a pay-per-view. It's a pay-per review if I'm reviewing the pay-per-view. Because you come up with a better idea. And I got the finale of the Cruiserweight Classic. So, let's get going. Backlash from the Richmond Coliseum in Richmond, Virginia on the WWE Network, or pay-per-view if you chose to, spend extra money. I guess. I mean, why would you buy it on pay-per-view if you can just get the network for $9.99 a month and that's all you paid for it? So, the pay-per-view comes included with the network, so, I don't know. Or you can just, continue streaming because you're some sort of bad boy who will know the touch of a woman anytime soon. So, onward and upward. They added a pre-show match, which I suspected they would when I previewed it last week. I didn't predict what the pre-show match would be. I probably wouldn't have guessed this, but maybe Baron Corbin versus somebody or Apollo Crews versus somebody, but I wouldn't have put the two of them together necessarily. So Baron Corbin defeated Apollo Crews in the pre-show match, just under 10 minutes, so got a nice little bit of time. And unfortunately, it was 10 minutes I wasn't looking at Renee Young, so I guess that's a detractor, I suppose. But, it was also 10 minutes I wasn't looking at Jerry Lawler or Booker T. So I guess it evens out. I wasn't looking at Renee Young or Lita, but I also wasn't looking at Jerry Lawler or Booker T. Both kings, by the way. Both former kings in WWE, but oh well. Well, one's still, I guess, a current king. He calls himself the king still, and Booker T was King Booker. So, I don't know. I don't know if there's a connection there or deliberate or just coincidental. But anyway. You were listening to Ring Rust Redux on Jabronology TV. This is Fanboy Mark Cerrone. You are listening to Ring Rust. So next up, we have the six-pack challenge for the SmackDown Women's Championship, which saw Natalya taking versus Alexa Bliss versus Naomi versus Carmella versus Nikki Bella versus the Ultimate Winner, who I predicted actually last week would win it. And I actually sent out a tweet like an hour or so before the pay-per-view actually started, even the pre-show, I think. Sent out a preemptive congratulatory tweet to Becky Lynch for winning the title, which she didn't, I didn't know anything. I just said, well, of the six of them, it's one that makes sense that would win it because, like I said, two of them, I think anyway, at least, or two or possibly three, are still on Total Divas, or at least were known for being on it before. I don't know if they still are. And two of them are newly on the roster, so they're probably not going to win the title just yet. I'm not with the main roster, not SmackDown itself, but but WWE in general. So that really only left one woman. And since I predicted her last week, of course I played her theme song last week, and that's the only theme song she used in WWE. The only other theme song it has listed on Wikipedia is You Can't Touch This by MC Hammer, which is top 40. So I did a search for some remakes of it, and it ended up being just people doing their own videos for the same song by MC Hammer. So that didn't really work. So I looked a little deeper, and I saw that at one point she managed the Knight dynasty of Saraya Knight and Brittany Knight. So that's Saraya Knight, of course, of British wrestling fame, and Brittany Knight, who is her daughter, Paige, in WWE. So, there's a connection right there. The Irish Lass Kicker was the manager of some tough British babes, and, well, I wonder, Knight dynasty, I wonder, wouldn't that make her a Knight Rider? You're listening to Ring Rust Redux on Gerbranology TV. I don't know if you do, but I do. The final qualifying match for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship Tournament, which saw the Usos, Jimmy and Jay, taking on the Hype Bros, Mojo Rawley and Zack Ryder. The Usos ended up defeating the Hype Bros by submission. I figured they would. I mean, I didn't predict how, by pinfall, by submission, by countout, whatever. I don't usually go to that extent because wrestling isn't usually quite that predictable to me. So, I guess they introduced a new submission move. I wasn't actually paying too close attention to the pay-per-view itself. Might want to rewatch it just to get the overall, a better view of the show overall. So, certainly worth a rewatch, I'm sure. So, I did predict the Usos were going to win because it did seem like since they had newly doffed their white cowboy hats and put on a black cowboy hat and started twirling their handlebar mustache traditionally, that probably they were going to go at least to the finals, if not actually win it. And we'll find out presently, when I get to the finals of the SmackDown Tag Team Championships tournament, whether or not they won. In the event you haven't seen it, if you have seen it, then you're just along for the ride, which is perfectly fine by me. You're listening to Ring Rust Redux on Gerbranology TV. The Miz successfully defended his Intercontinental Championship against Dolph Ziggler. Now, I did predict that. Maybe a little further down the line, if there's a continuing feud, Dolph Ziggler will win the Intercontinental title, but it's sort of, hey, let's put Dolph Ziggler back in the Intercontinental title picture kind of thing. So I didn't really expect him to win it just yet. Not that I'm not expecting him to win it, I'm just not expecting him to win it just yet. So, yeah. I did predict most of these matches. The next match actually will be a little bit, I called it, but not the way it ended up going, I guess. And then I didn't call the result of how it went. So that's the thing about wrestling. It's all they can still throw surprises at you, even though you think it's super predictable, but you keep watching. So even though it's super predictable, it's like, but something different might happen. Yeah, that's what results are for. Why don't you just go watch something you're going to enjoy? Watch something you know for a fact is going to surprise you. I don't know. Just solve your own problems. Don't complain about your problems on the internet and have everyone say, yeah, I agree, man. Because that's all it's doing. It's just a bunch of the opposite of winners on the internet saying, I don't like this thing which I choose to continue watching. So I continue to not enjoy it. So, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm smarter than the average fan who doesn't understand that, if you don't like something, you don't need to watch it. You don't like Raw. You don't like watching Raw for 3 hours. Don't watch Raw for 3 hours. Watch something else. Or wait for someone to post somewhere a version of Raw. Like, go to the Hulu cut. Hulu cuts a bunch of things out and it brings it down to about 2 hours, I think. Watch it on YouTube where someone takes the commercials out. They record it under DVR and post it to YouTube, or download it from whatever website you go to download things. Or watch it with a friend, or more than one friend, and just enjoy not enjoying it. Make happiness from your torture. What the hell's going on? Why did I do that? Ha ha ha, Cassie the chips. Have fun. Wrestling used to be fun. Remember when your wrestling used to be fun? What were you doing when wrestling was fun? Hanging out with your friends watching it? Ding, ding, ding. I'm going to start quoting Eli Drake now momentarily. But before I do that,
Because men talk wills it so.
Proceed.
I'll make you fun size.
Ha ha ha! Cookies on dolls.
This is a great cat guitar slamming wrestling news radio on Ring Rust, CHMR 93.5 FM.
Bray Wyatt defeating Randy Orton, but it was by forfeit because, see, Randy Orton got hurt earlier in the night, as they showed in this backstage thing where Bray Wyatt went and slammed the door on his ankle. So I did predict that Bray Wyatt was going to win, but I certainly didn't expect it to happen like that. Because apparently Randy Orton got actually hurt going into the pay-per-view, and that was just the storyline way of actually dealing with it. So rather than just have the match not happen, I guess, they had Bray Wyatt come to the ring and say, I want you to give him a 10 count, and then declare me the winner. And that's what happened. The referee gave a 10 count, and Bray was declared the winner. And then the higher-ups had something different in mind. They said, hey, we don't want you to you were down there to have a wrestling match, so why don't you have a wrestling match? So we'll give you a no-holds-barred match against Kane. And it's like, okay then. Bray Wyatt didn't seem too bothered, I guess, by it. I mean, he could have said no. But 11 minutes later, Kane ended up beating Bray Wyatt in that aforementioned no-holds-barred match.
This is 93.5 CHMR FM.
Ring Rust presents Macho Facts. Randy Savage has counted to infinity twice. And the Macho Man's the reason Waldo is hiding. Like me on Facebook, tinyurl.com/ringrust. Follow me on Twitter @MarkJabroni, and subscribe to Jabronology TV, youtube.com/fanboymarkjabroni. This is Fanboy Mark Jabroni. You are listening to Ring Rust. So, of course, Wednesday night was the finale of the first round, I guess, first iteration, the inaugural WWE Cruiserweight Classic. So, I'm looking forward to seeing what else they do with it. I guess they'll be doing it annually, probably, to bring in more cruiserweights to keep their cruiserweight division topped up, and because probably people are going to end up getting hurt, and people are going to say, well, this is fine, I got some exposure, so now I'm going to go parlay this into more lucrative dates over in Japan, because I've heard, actually, they can work for the same money for half the amount of work if they go to Japan. That's what MVP used to do. Not that he's a cruiserweight, but that's what MVP would have theoretically not been interested in coming back to WWE, because he was working less dates for the same money by going to Japan. I mean, if you don't mind going to Japan and being in Japan for 6 months at a time, and then coming back to North America and working dates there, or just not working at all, just staying in shape, and then just going back to Japan in 6 months. You can work for 6 months, you can rest for 6 months, and make the same amount of money you can working year-round for WWE. So, seems like a no-brainer to me, especially if you're someone like MVP, who's actually a name from WWE that's somewhat still in demand. But anyway, so I imagine a lot of, I don't know about a lot, but a number of cruiserweights will end up doing that. They'll take their shtick back to Japan, or to Japan in the first place, or whatever. And not T.J. Perkins. He's the ultimate winner of the inaugural Cruiserweight Classic. If you haven't seen it yet, well, you're listening to a show that does wrestling results. So if you haven't seen it yet, it's your own fault for listening to a show where you knew for a fact, if you're a regular listener, you were going to get some form of spoiler. Sorry. You were listening to Ring Rust Redux on Jabronology TV. I'm not sure. Maybe someone would use that as an entrance theme, I guess. I don't know what kind of gimmick they'd have. I guess they'd be a black metal kind of character, I suppose. Perhaps they could resurrect the WCW Demon. This is Fabo Mark Jabroni. You're listening to Ring Rust. I'll let you wonder whether or not I was serious. So the second last match from Backlash from Richmond, Virginia, saw Heath Slater and Rhino, the team of Redneck and No Neck, because I like naming tag teams and they didn't have a tag team name, defeating the Usos, Jimmy and Jay. Because I figure, and that's what I predicted, because I figured it would actually come down to the two of them, those two teams. But I had a feeling, considering how much production they were putting into the two of them, and the fact that they were making such a big deal out of Heath Slater being a free agent and he wasn't officially signed to either brand, they were going to do something. They wanted to do something big. I was under the impression they wanted to do something big, and they did. They gave him and Rhino the tag team championships. And soon after winning the tag team titles, Heath Slater was no longer a free agent. He was officially signed to SmackDown. So, yeah, all worked out. And now he can get that double-wide trailer and a above-ground pool that he's always wanted. So, God. If I can have your attention, please. I just received an email from the ridiculous Ring Rust general manager. Since you played Heath Slater's theme last week, why don't you play something else? I have an idea. Oh, actually, I like that idea. I like the idea of playing that song. So I think in celebration for Heath Slater both winning the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, becoming the first ever SmackDown Tag Team Champions, eye roll, and becoming signed to the SmackDown brand, let's celebrate with some Violent Femmes. You're listening to Ring Rust Redux on Jabronology TV. This is Fabo Mark Jabroni. You are listening to Ring Rust, and it's just as well probably to do the three-way dance-off a little bit early. Usually I wait until the top of the last quarter of the show, but I'll do it a few minutes early.
Welcome to tonight's main event!
And we have a capacity crowd on hand for this battle of the millennium.
I'll be concluding the Backlash review, pay-per-review as it were, because it's a pay-per-view and it's a review, so anyway, after the three-way dance-off, but for right now, let's address the butthurt tosspot internet wrestling fans in the room, shall we? Those of you who said, quote, from the beginning, unquote, that CM Punk was going to fail at UFC, it's like, okay, that's your opinion. You've stated it. Move on. But then you kept stating it over and over again. Every time something CM Punk and UFC related came up, you had to reiterate the fact that he's going to fail at UFC. It's like, okay, you've expressed your opinion. We understand you don't like him. You don't like the fact that he left WWE the way he left WWE, but he left WWE. Deal with it, as Batista would say, some almost 5 years ago now. But you didn't deal with it. You just kept harping on it and harping on it and harping on it, and then the date kept being pushed back because either he injured himself during training or he got sick or something during training or whatever. But then the date was finally announced. And all you could do was say they finally set a date for when Punk was going to have his ass handed to him. It's like, my God, you have nothing else going on in your life, do you? So he debuted in the UFC a couple of weekends ago. He had his match. He lost. He, point of fact, had his ass handed to him, I guess, if you want to see it in the absolute most negative way possible. And I'm sure when you took your hand out of your pants for 5 minutes and stood up and proudly proclaimed, "See, I told you." Yeah, and what did you get for it? Nothing. You got proven right on the internet. So, congratulations. Here's a cookie. I'm eating your cookie because you don't deserve a cookie. to this day, still, I'm seeing memes of, the thing about the gorilla and the kid that fell into the gorilla's pit, and then what happened to the kid, and there's a meme that says, this kid lasted longer than CM Punk in UFC, and it's like, could you please give it a rest? It happened. He had his match, he lost, he's probably going to come back, because I know if I had trained as long as he trained to debut in UFC and lost my first match, I'd be coming back. Even if I'd won my first match, I'd probably still be coming back. If I win or lose, I would have came back. So, it serves nobody, especially yourselves, or those listening to you, incessantly going on about how he, you're not even talking about how he left WWE. Oh my God, my favorite part, within the first 6 months of him leaving WWE, people were saying, CM Punk, who's that? Because, sure, why not? Well, I'm not a UFC fan. I am a CM Punk fan. It didn't make me want to watch UFC, mainly because, nothing he could have done would have been enough for anybody. I wanted to switch off the internet. Not just mine. The internet completely. Like everybody's internet. I wanted to switch off everybody's internet for a month. So I wouldn't have to hear, win or lose, what happened during that match. But, oh well. So for all of those who are still butthurt, apparently, about the fact that CM Punk left WWE the way he did, even though you're not saying such, and for those who said from the beginning, according to you, although I'm sure if he had won, you would have stood right up and said, see, I told you he was going to win. I'm sure some of you would have stuck with your guns and said, well, I didn't think he was going to win, but he did, so, oh well, I'm going to go play some Call of Duty. Or whatever game you're playing. So, nothing against Call of Duty players, it's just the first one that popped into my head. Like, you're angrily going to go do something else so that you don't show the world that you're angrily doing something else. So, I was disappointed that he left WWE. I understood why he was doing it because he explained why he was doing it. A couple of times, anyone who was willing to listen. Which presumably wasn't you. Because he didn't leave the way you wanted him to leave. You wanted him to have a big old send-off. You wanted him to put someone over, or you wanted him to do literally anything other than what he did. But he didn't. He did what he did. So, you having your thumb crammed up your butt over it is not going to change the fact that that's what he did. And he went to the UFC and he had a match. He's done two things that you can't do. Get trained in wrestling and get trained in UFC. So, get over yourselves. If you want to show people what it's like to succeed at UFC, go train and go get some MMA training and get signed to UFC. Does anybody want you to join UFC? Look at yourself in the mirror and say, how long will it take you to get in UFC shape? Think of even one person who, when they look in the mirror, they see someone who looks like you in your current state of health. Now, you could have legitimate health issues that prevent you from doing anything athletic, and that's fine, except you really don't need to be harping on the fact that someone who is capable of doing something athletically failed at it when you can't. You to the extreme can't if you actually have a physical condition stopping you. But those of you who don't, who just don't want to, or think, man, this is like hard. Exercise is hard and stuff. And weights are heavy. And punches hurt your fist. And I don't know. Any excuse you can come up with. And yes, I use the word excuse. Because it's not a reason. If you're literally just sitting there, literally just not doing it, you don't have a reason, you have an excuse to not do it. So, this is for all of you who are using excuses, not reasons, to continue harping on the fact that CM Punk left WWE the way you didn't want him to, and is now doing things that aren't WWE even though you don't want him to. Too bad. Get over it. Hashtag UFCM Punk. Colin Oliver do a lot of really entertaining wrestling-centric songs. I don't think they've done anything not wrestling-related. Not that I recall. Not that I've seen anyway. I think they do acoustic versions usually of WWE theme songs. Or they do tribute songs / parodies like that one. Like they did one for Kevin Owens, they did one for Seth Rollins. So go check them out, Kyle and Oliver on YouTube. Pro Wrestling Goes Acoustic is what their channel is called. And this is Fanboy Mark Gibroni. You're listening to Ring Rust. AJ Styles defeating Dean Ambrose for the WWE World Championship, which I didn't see. That's not how I predicted. I predicted Dean Ambrose to defend, and maybe 2 or 3 matches later, probably get a bigger pay-per-view. They'd have, like, what's the next one? Survivor Series? Because they just had SummerSlam. So the next big one would be Survivor Series. Maybe on that one, it would be the big SmackDown World Heavyweight title match, and, then he would have won it. But that's the way I would have done it anyway, but this worked just as well. This is the first time he was challenging for the title, so I just didn't see it happening that way, but, I'm not complaining in the slightest, so good for him. Like me on Facebook, tinyurl.com/ringrust. Follow me on Twitter @MarkGibroni, and subscribe to Jarbronology TV, youtube.com/fanboymarkgibroni. Next week, I'm going to be previewing Ring of Honor's upcoming All-Star Extravaganza 8, which will actually air on September 30th, but I figured, why preview it the day of when I can preview it the week before, and you can be all prepared for it. And mine will probably be the first one to fully preview it. Anyway, not that that's a big deal, but, we got a lot of people pictured on the poster. Jay Lethal and Bullet Club, and it looks like we even got the Motor City Machine Guns and Adam Cole and all these guys, so it looks like there's going to be some New Japan fellas in there as well. So we'll see how it all plays out. And I personally will see whether or not I'm going to experience a sudden blood flow to a certain part of my body when Taylor Hendricks makes her way out to the ring. That's it for another show, kiddies. Check me out on Facebook, where you can keep track of all the news that's right on the mark, from around ringside to the latest concerts. See you at the shows. Later days.
This is 93.5 CHMR FM.